99% of entrepreneurs get this completely wrong, and your MBA definitely won't teach you this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are unpacking some serious, street-smart survival skills from Wealth Creation Lessons MBA Won't Teach You. We're going to tear down all that academic fluff today.
Because seriously, if you try to apply rigid, beautifully formatted business plans to the absolute Wild West of startups, you are going to get flattened. The real world doesn't care about theory if you don't actually understand the fundamental gritty rules of surviving day to day.
So let me ask you directly. Did you also think starting a business means you have to get funding first? Be honest. I mean, we've all been completely conditioned to believe that step one is begging venture capitalists for millions of dollars. We think capital is this massive barrier to entry. But what if I told you that relying on massive funding right out of the gate is actually a trap? A trap that blinds you to how wealth is actually generated.
It really comes down to a clash of two styles. You've got your standard MBA theory, what the author hilariously calls the pedantic eunuch-on style. Think of it like a palace servant trying to teach the emperor grand tactics, completely in a vacuum, without ever having fought a battle. Then you have the street-smart reality, the Lauderdale style. This is the chaotic, boots-on-the-ground, daily survival of a startup. You literally cannot simulate a street fight in a sterile classroom, and you definitely can't learn how to pivot when your cash dries up from a professor who's only ever collected a steady paycheck.
All right, let's jump straight into truth number one, the philosophy of subtraction.
You know, in business, everybody's just so obsessed with adding stuff. The myth is that more money, more features, and more products equal success. But the reality? It's all about subtraction. Cutting out what the source calls pseudo-opportunities is your actual superpower. A pseudo-opportunity is that shiny project that looks profitable, but it actually just drains your time, traps your capital, and completely caps your growth. Knowing what not to do is infinitely more valuable than finding 10 new things to try.
Think about Bill Gates for a second. Step 1, subtract the Harvard degree. Step 2, add the Microsoft startup focus. Gates didn't succeed by just endlessly adding to his plate. He subtracted a massive, incredibly safe asset, a Harvard degree, because it was eating up the energy he desperately needed. By aggressively cutting away that safe path, he created the massive void necessary to build a totally unprecedented wealth creation engine.
So how do we actually apply this subtraction? First off, ignore industries with a low glass ceiling. If a business maxes out at 10 million bucks and you literally can't scale it further, don't even start. Second, do not get trapped by sunk costs. Just because you poured time into a terrible idea doesn't mean you should keep bleeding out. And finally, trust your sixth sense over rigid MBA data models. Realistically, startups don't have the cash for massive market research anyway. Your intuition and your agility are going to beat flawed, rigid MBA surveys every single time.
Moving right along to truth number 2. Survive first, brand later. There's this kind of tragic obsession small companies have with acting like giant, established legacy brands from day one. They blow all their seed money trying to look like Apple or Dior. But here's the thing, branding is a luxury for the surviving, not a strategy for the starving. To get this, we have to talk about the value chain. It's a connected series of activities where every single piece of customer value requires a corresponding cost. Listen, brand is just a medicine. You only prescribe it if your specific business actually has that disease. If you're a tiny manufacturer, you don't need the brand medicine, you need the efficiency medicine.
Let's look at how Zara totally flipped the script on this cost structure. Traditional 5-star brands spend absolute millions on celebrity odds, right? Well, Zara subtracted that completely. $0. Traditional brands outsource to cheap labor to save pennies. Zara actually owns its factories to guarantee extreme speed. Traditional brands focus on safe, core basics. Zara hires over 200 designers to create endless, rapid-fire style varieties. They completely manipulated their value chain, slashing the cost customers don't actually care about so they could offer 5-star style at 2-star prices.
And get this, Zara uses some seriously crazy anti-MBA survival tactics to pull this off. Half-empty delivery trucks, clothes shipped hanging up on racks instead of efficiently folded into boxes, almost zero warehouse space, refusing to restock sold-out, highly profitable hit items. An MBA professor would literally fail you for suggesting these. But Zara does it because every single weird move is hyper-focused on their ultimate goal, unprecedented speed. They gladly sacrifice traditional logistics efficiency to make sure a fresh design from Milan is on their shelves in 2 weeks.
Okay, let's hit our final and honestly most brutal truth. Truth number 3, the cash flow game.
Real entrepreneurship is not some theoretical profit margin exercise designed in a spreadsheet. It is a raw, daily survival game. It's the profit margin myth versus the cash flow reality. Look, an 80% profit margin looks absolutely genius on a spreadsheet, but that margin means absolutely nothing if all your capital is tied up in inventory or unpaid invoices and you can't even make payroll next week. Cash flow is the oxygen for your business. You can actually survive a long time without making a profit, but you will suffocate in days without cash.
Take the SanDisk survival story, for example. Year 1, they invent flash memory, but they start with zero financing. Nobody believed in them. Years 2 and 3, they didn't sit around waiting for some massive brand deal. They scrambled for any odd job just to generate daily cash. They literally rang a bell in the office for every tiny order just to keep morale up and the lights on. Year 4, they finally grab a Lifebuoy order from IBM for 10,000 units. And years later, they went on to dominate 14% of the entire global MP3 market.
Which perfectly proves the author's core message. Cash flow to a startup is forever number one. Surviving is the first principle. The SanDisk team didn't win because they launched with a flawless MBA business plan. They won because they were completely, ruthlessly obsessed with cash flow. They did whatever it took to stay alive. If you survive long enough, your true, highly profitable business model will eventually reveal itself.
Let's rapidly summarize what we've unpacked today. First, apply the philosophy of subtraction. Subtract the fluff, cut those pseudo-opportunities, and ruthlessly focus your energy. Second, manipulate the value chain. Ignore that brand myth early on, figure out exactly what value you provide, and cut costs everywhere else. And third, protect your cash flow like your life depends on it, because the life of your business absolutely does.
So now, it's your turn. I've got to ask, what pitfalls have you encountered in your own startup journey? Let's chat in the comments. Did you fall for the branding myth? Did you run out of cash while chasing a supposedly high profit margin? Get down in the comments right now and share your startup disasters, your lessons, and your street-smart survival stories. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you down in the comments.